Okay, so what we need to do is we need to check the case length. We are going to need to, if it's too long, then we need to trim it. We're going to need to clean the primer pocket. And then even if I don't need to case trim, I still go ahead and run the deburring tool on the inside because it does put that ramp in there. So this is a case length gauge. And so the way this works is you put your case down in there. Hope it's upside down. You put your case down in there, and then it has two different spots. It has a high and a low, and that's going to tell you if you need to trim it. And it's pretty even. And the same thing on the other side. It has the high and low side, so you can tell if you need to trim it. So if we go on the high side or the low side, I can just feel it, but on the high side, it's underneath. And so what that looks like, if I can get up close, you can see that it's in between the high and the low. So that means we don't need to trim it. But even though we don't need to trim this, I want consistency. Even though it's not necessarily precision for 300 blackout, I still want as much consistency as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every single one of these cases and I'm still going to trim them, deburr them, chamfer them, and of course, if you have the dry tumbler, we're going to need to clean the primer pockets. So let's start with the primer pocket first. Okay, so because we picked up brass from the range, we don't necessarily know what kind of brass we have. So I do know this is LC. LC is NATO brass typically. I mean, it is 300 blackout, but it was made from 223 or 556. I believe that's actually 556 because it's NATO. Typically, these will come with a crimped primer pocket. So I shot some rounds today that I previously already loaded, and then I picked some stuff up, but it's mixed up, and I don't know which is which because I all threw it together. Typically, what I will do when I shoot, I will pick up the brass and put it back in the box and keep it all together so I know exactly what's going on and how many times I shot it. But we're going to pretend like this is just range brass. So the first thing we're going to need to do is remove that crimp on the primer pocket, and we'll do that with our tool that we talked about if you're following along. It's the Lyman tool, and what this does is it just removes just a couple turns and it will remove that crimp. Sorry, I'm kind of holding the phone between my knees. So once we remove that crimp, then it's time to clean the primer pocket. And again, if you're following along and you got the tool, it does all of it. It's a case prep tool. Now this doesn't clean it 100%, but it does get a lot of the dirt and grime out from underneath it. You can get in that corner. And typically, I don't spend a whole lot of time doing this because I will do a couple other extra steps later on down the road. So that's pretty much how we do the primer pockets. And you can see it's a lot cleaner. Now what I will do, if I'm using the vibrating tumbler, is I throw these back in for maybe 20-30 minutes. And then what that does is it will kind of get in there and clean some of the dirt out. The bad thing about it is it leaves dust in there. So what I'll do after I size and deburr is I go back in there, I clean it, and then I use a Q-tip to get all that dirt out from in there. So the next thing is going to be is case length. We're going to trim our cases.